Are you ready? Are you ready?
Call to order the October 4, 2023 Lower Saucon Township Council meeting. Mark, please call the roll.
Mr. Benonis?
Here.
Mr. Croce? Here. Ms. DeLeon?
Here.
Mr. Engels?
Here.
Ms. Schroeder?
Here.
Everyone is here.
All right, please stand and press the flag.
That's not going to stay like that. That's why I got it stuffed in there.
All right. All right, council, we will not be in executive session tonight. There are no executive session issues for action. Public comment procedure is available on the tables outside the council meeting room. We have public comment on agenda items only for residents and taxpayers only with a 3-minute time limit. There are 2 matters that are on the agenda tonight. One is the Fire Services Subcommittee presentation. The other is the presentation of the 2024 draft budget. So with that said, those wishing to speak on the council meeting agenda, first is Donna Lauer. Just identify yourself.
Donna Lauer, still sitting.
Thank you.
Regarding the budget, on page 4, where it says public safety charges for, may I ask if the hill climb pays the township for the police coverage?
So it's public comment, Donna.
Okay, I'm making a public comment then. So if they do not, I feel that that's an issue that should be looked into, because if everybody else has to pay for the extended police coverage and it generates overtime, I think that would be something that should be considered as well. And I know Chief Mark had attempted this at one time, but that was years ago. The other thing was, thank you for lowering the overtime. That means nobody has to work
Overtime.
overtime. Thank you.
Can I get a clarification from Mark Hudson on what not the overtime, the special events such as the Hill Climb, when there's a Lehigh football game, Lehigh University does pay, reimburse us for their.
They request us to be there.
Right.
The hill time is more of a preventative measure. But I'll talk to the chief and we'll talk to the hill time.
So when we're requested, we charge.
Yes.
But if it's the police chief's decision to have extra police officers out there, then we hold it down.
Correct.
It's been like every year.
Okay. Well,
Right.
From what I guess.
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next is Phil Spons. Phil Spons.
Phil Swan, 2317 Silver Creek Road. I was at the Hellertown Borough meeting on Monday night, and I read in the paper the proposal, and for line 456, it says libraries. I'm questioning that, and I see 100,000, yet the proposal was for 125,000.
Okay, thank you. All right, next is Bob Laska. Bob Laska. Going once.
Robert Blasco, or Saucon Township. I have a question, maybe I just don't see it here, it's listed as something else. I know we've talked about parks and recreation things different time. Where is that in the budget here? Is that listed under something else, or am I just missing it?
What line item is park and recreation?
Sir, this is your opportunity for public comment.
Well, it's not in there, that I can find.
462, page 19.
Yeah, because
Where is it? I'm sorry.
Page 19.
Okay, I'll
Budget part 462.
Uh-huh.
Up next is Andrew Witchen. Andrew Witchen.
Andrea Witchen. I have two comments on the fire subcommittee proposal. The first comment is that in 2020, in October, on October 7th of 2020, there was a proposal from Kurochi to reduce the millage of the fire tax from 1 mil to 0.75 mils. That was finally approved when the budget was approved in December, on December 16th, 2020. What that says to me is that in the rush to reduce taxes so that you have something to run on in 2021, you did some pretty unfortunate projection of what the costs of the fire company were going to be. So what we have in effect done is lost 2 years worth of fire tax that could have been accrued to be put towards this $14 million proposal as far as costs are concerned. And my second comment is that on March 22nd, 2023, this council authorized a subcommittee of the council to do a capital plan for the fire company. And today we are presented with that plan. And as far as I know, there were no publicly identified meetings. There was no opportunity for the public to attend meetings of this subcommittee of the council, which puts it under the aegis of the Sunshine Law. So unless this plan just burst fully blown from the head of this committee, like Athena from the head of Zeus, I think there are some substantial questions regarding the application of the Sunshine Law to the work that this committee did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Ms. Laura Ray. Ms. Laura Ray.
That's exactly what happened. I can't heard that.
Okay, I'd like to talk about the fire services report as well. So I did also look back in the minutes in March, and I noted that the members that were listed on the committee back in March on the report were not all appointed by council. So what's showing up on the report now isn't what was appointed back then. So somewhere in between, more members got appointed at not a council meeting. There was really no opportunity at all for the public to apply to serve on this committee. And then next, as we discussed at the last council meeting regarding sunshine laws, a committee like this, which would be making recommendations to council, should be holding public meetings. So as far as I'm aware, there was never any notice of these meetings. The lack of transparency is disturbing. I believe this is a violation of sunshine laws as well. The report, according to the resolution, was slated to be presented at the 9/20 meeting. That would have given us a little bit of time to look at it before we're starting into the budget here tonight. Sadly, we just got our first glimpse of this a few days ago. Also of note, as Andrea just said, this was fire tax reduction was proposed in the end of 2020, so that in 2021 there was a $0.25 mil tax reduction in the fire tax. So it made no sense at all to cut funding for fire companies because they certainly need the funding and they weren't ever overfunded. It's always been the opposite. So that was an election year, of course, so it looked good on your flyers that you sent out. So now just 2 years later, we're looking at a plan where you're wanting almost $15 million for a project. Seemed a time, let's see, so for something so major, the public should be able to have discussion and input on this matter, other than the 3 minutes that we get here. And this is before we see or hear about the plan in any more detail. So hopefully that's going to be happening like a separate meeting, not a 3-minute agenda item thing. So,
Okay, thank you. All right, next is Mark Zimic. Mark Zimic.
I pass. I got
Okay, that
nothing.
concludes the agenda item portion of the meeting. Public comment. Next, we have presentations, hearings, ordinances, resolutions, fire services, subcommittee presentation. I think we have Chief Ty Johnson, other members of the volunteer fire force are here. And I know, Tom, you were an active participant in this.
Yeah. All right, Don, you want to come up?
And Donald Adams, I'm sorry. Thank you, Don. All right, let's begin.
Well, the Fire Services Committee.
Is your microphone on, Tom?
The Fire Services Committee met throughout the summer a couple times, and they were initially charged with getting back by September, but the person who commented why they didn't get us in September is they were, you want to tell them what you were doing in September? Why it wasn't done in September? You were planning something, a funeral, perhaps?
Yes, we had a line of duty death in our fire department, and
Some people don't
we asked to have it put on the back burner because many of us were tasked with taking care of the family and provide a memorial service for that fire.
So I hope that's a good enough excuse for Ms. Ray. I don't know.
Thank you again for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Okay, so, there was a resolution from council to create this subcommittee, and the appointed members were Scott Creasha, Captain, President Lower Saucon Fire and Rescue, Ty Johnson, Fire Chief, Lower Saucon Township, Anthony Dia, Battalion Chief, Brian Evans, Battalion Chief, Dave Spurk, Township Resident, Donna Lauder, Township Resident, Tom Perochi, Council Liaison, Tom Barnett, Chief of Police, Mark Hudson, Township Manager, and Kathy Gordon, Assistant Township Manager, Finance Director. And the mission was to develop a long-term strategic plan to ensure sustainability of fire and rescue services in Lower Saucon Township. Review the need and cost for future fire trucks and state-of-the-art firefighting equipment. Review fire station location and real estate in relation to the current township residents and businesses' needs and the future station maintenance costs of our aging fire stations. And proposals of funding options to ensure Lower Saucon Fire and Rescue continues to innovate and remains a superior volunteer fire service. These recommendations will result in continued protection of life and property through fiscally responsible firefighting, rescue, and fire prevention. So it's meant to be a long-term plan. This is also meant to just be a starting. This was, we wanted to get some things on paper to present to council and the public for comment now. I think it's best to get comment after you have something for people to look at, so they can comment on the specifics, not the abstract. With that, either Ty or Scott, would one of you want to start with, the facilities plan and really, what the committee came up with as a solution to kind of some of our aging fire stations. The CYCO was built in 1890, Southeastern 1959, Steel City 1986. So some of our aging stations. Would you like to start, Ty?
Yeah, I can start. All right, Lana? Majority of the firehouses in Lower Saucon Township have some pretty good age on them, and we're rapidly outgrowing the needs of these fire stations. We end up putting a lot of money into maintenance and whatnot. Not to mention, the trucks themselves are a lot different than the trucks were in the 60s and 70s. The trucks are bigger, they're square, there's just a lot more going on with them. So, you want me to just read through this proposal here? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have some of the bullet points up here for the fire stations. You know, and also the location. We'll get to the fire maps and the service call maps and all that. But, you know, I guess, you know, we talked about your guys' desires to consolidate a little bit as far as the number of stations and the amount of property that you guys are tasked with maintaining as volunteers.
Right. Yeah, and in the process of this, I mean, we were trying to figure out where the best spot would be to put a main station, let's call it. You know, we're thinking the area of Oak Valley is the center of the township when you look at it on a map. That'll give us the best access to the majority of the township. Now, that being said, just the shape of our township, since it's in a horseshoe, is kind of tough to navigate. So we decided to have some satellite stations, and you know, also coincides with our call volume for those particular areas. So, for instance, the Seawaco station, you know, we could relocate possibly to here, to the township property that's owned, and those trucks would be, for the most part, relocated to the main station.
So it's at the, like a Seawaco station here on township property, you need like two bays? Perhaps?
Right, yeah, approximately 2 bays, one being a drive-through, you know, here again, like a substation. Not so much apparatus like we have down here now. This would better serve the community of Lower Saucon, that everything's in the center, the main pieces are in the center, and we'll have fire apparatus on the out in satellite stations or substations.
Can you talk about, the committee talked about having equipment on both sides of the water in case of flooding? Want to
Right.
address that?
Yeah, so often the Saucon Creek floods and it cuts us off from each side of the township. So when we have incidents like that, we try to staff our stations because we'll have, you know, multiple water rescues going on, wire fires, house fire. I mean, when we have a hurricane, for instance, we can have every type of call that there is. So in the past, we've had to get on our crash gates of I-78 to transfer equipment to the other side of the township if need be. So with this plan here, we'll still have apparatus on both sides of the creek that when it comes up, that we can still respond to calls and serve the community.
Yeah, and I think, just to back up for 1 second, Tom, on what Chief Johnson was saying, is the layout of the township does bring a whole nother dimension to this plan. Ideally, our preference would be under one roof, centrally located. However, just the layout of the township makes that difficult for not only responding apparatus to calls, but also our volunteers to respond to station. You can imagine, and again, our volunteers, only the chief officers have lights and sirens. The rest of our volunteers are essentially at the mercy of traffic and traffic lights and stop signs and with the normal flow of traffic. You can imagine if there was a house fire out in the off of Wassergrass Road and a volunteer from here responding over to that area of the township to get an apparatus would be an extremely long response time. So that's where the idea of sort of a central location, modernized with several other things that will help us plan for the future as well came in. But in efforts to not only serve the township, as well as keeping the ISO insurance ratings in mind to provide that, you know, that level of service and not incur a dip in that, that's where the idea of having to have some satellite stations as well. But this is all part of the big plan to be able to sort of take the next step. We've consolidated through the merger, but it's hard for us to lessen equipment the way we're spread out right now.
Right, and we'll get to equipment and how this plan would help lessen equipment. The committee talked about building a main firehouse for the next 50 years, you know, something that's going to really be relevant, and then having these substations. So that would entail the selling of Seawyco and Lykesville, which are on the edges of the township, when you really think about it. And around the area around Southeastern, because if you're just going to have a substation there, you wouldn't need all that property. And then as far as Steel City, that would be a substation too. Would you like to talk about that?
Yes, there would be a new station constructed there, obviously, because there is a relatively new building on site already, that we can make work to have at least one engine at that station, which is what's there now, actually, with some modifications to upgrade the facility with bathrooms and like a day room, which would be a kitchen lounge for guys that are there during storms and whatnot. It would be pretty self-sufficient, and you know, there's a little community there that we're working on trying to get more manpower out of to supply that station with manpower, so that could help the whole picture of what we're trying to do.
Right, and we talked about how, you know, you really don't have the volunteers anymore to man social halls and community rooms like that. So we talked about you guys perhaps divesting of the brick building in Steel City to the township, which the township could maintain, possibly rent out, like we rent out pavilions to residents that want to use an indoor space. Perhaps committee and council meetings could be held up there, so we're convenient every now and then for Steel City residents, so sort of Parks and Recs meeting or the Planning Commission meeting. And I think it would be a good asset for the township to have. All that. It would also take some maintenance and some facility man hours and costs off of your plate.
Yes. Yeah, the social halls, while they were great back in the day for maintaining firehouses and fire apparatus, I mean, that's how a lot of us grew up, was in the fire hall, doing breakfast and dinners. But we also ran 38 calls a year. This year we're probably going to break 900. So we can't go to training and do breakfast, and we can't run calls and make a Saturday night dinner. We'd all be divorced.
And how many bogies do you have to sell to buy a fire truck?
Yeah, right.
When fire trucks were a couple $100,000.
Right. Yeah, the price of fire apparatus has gone up tremendously, and it's just, we need the help from the community and the township.
Right.
We can't do it.
Right. So as far as the facilities are concerned, this is kind of the main plan. You have the bullet points here. If there's some positive feedback from council, when council has a chance to comment on this, hopefully the next step for the committee is getting some real solid appraisals of what the Seawyco and Lykesville station, could sell for. We have some. We did have a real estate expert take a look at that and give some ballpark figures, which came out to about $6.2 million. But a full-scale appraisal was not done, is my understanding from my meetings. Okay. All right. Do you want to go on to the construction of the new main station and what that's going to entail? You want to do questions in between, or do you want to do?
I think I'd like to hear the whole presentation, and I probably have some questions, comments, so we'll go through it, let them do their presentation.
That's great.
All right, so we want to construct, this slide deals with what this new facility would entail. You want to talk about that?
Sure. So the main station would have like bunk room. We would have enough drive-through bays to supply or make room for the equipment we have, plus like our specialty equipment like the boats, UTVs, So when you see 6 drive-through bays, it's not that we're going to be putting 12 pieces of apparatus, firefighting apparatus here. We do have a lot of other assets that need to go under that one roof. So the kind of the idea with this new firehouse too would be, it would be a draw on membership. It'd be a place for guys to get under one roof and be there for when a call comes in. With us being spread out now, it's kind of tough to do that. But it'll have bunk room, showers, conference room, the mechanical rooms that we need, and the extra storage. Also, it would be an EOC room there, which when we have a major disaster or storm in the township, we activate the EOC, and that's where the fire chief, representative from the township, the EMA director will all be there to coordinate any kind of major incident in the township. That would be like the headquarters. So that's very important. Right now, we really don't have that. So this would be a great help for that to make the residents feel safe that we're able to accomplish having people in the same building when we have a major incident.
And you want rooms for training and hopefully some acreage for training as well.
Yeah, so down the road, we could possibly be building a training center, which would be a great help to us because right now we have to travel anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes to a training ground, which we have to find another fire department to cover us while we're out of the area. So there's some logistics to it that down the road behind this new fire station would be a great help for us to put in a training facility.
Right. If you could do the training in the township, you wouldn't have to get another fire company to cover Lower Saucon Township while you're out of the township.
Right. Plus, there's a lot more. We'd be able to fine tune our skills a lot more than we do now. I mean, we do Monday nights now as our main training night, but guys do get together on a Saturday and train. But there's really nothing for us to train on per se, other than finding other buildings, a school district and whatnot.
There's a big time component to that as well, because not only when we have to set aside the time for training, you have to build travel into that. So as a volunteer, so for example, a week from Sunday, we have one of our biannual training burns. We're basically building an extra 2 hours into our weekend time because we have to travel outside the area to be able to complete those tasks.
Right. And then one of the things that Chief Clark talked about was possibly having a police substation in the building as well too, for the same reason. It's some police officers that have kind of a substation that's centrally located within the township, that's on that side of the water if there's flooding.
It's by the school district.
Right. That really hasn't been fleshed out, but it's an idea. That if we go forward with this, we want council to consider to have. All right, is there anything else? And then these are just some pictures you want to talk about the new stations that have been built.
Yes, so the committee was also tasked with finding some stations around the area that are being built, just to give us a baseline. Here's Fort Washington is one. This isn't exactly what our station would look like, but it's a pretty good rendering of something that could be designed and built. We've reached out to other departments to talk to them and see what their thoughts are, like what they're putting in their firehouses. So there's still some investigative work we got to do to figure out exactly what we want.
We just wanted to have some visuals for the public to see, and for council to see, what modern fire stations look like, kind of compared to the ones we have,
Right.
and what something would possibly look like. So I think those are good pictures. I think we talked about the substations. Is there anything else you want to add? I mean, you want to keep a substation in Southeast, and you think that's important?
Right, so for the southeastern zone, for instance, that's our second busiest zone in the township, and our mutual aid comes from pretty far away. So it's pretty important to have a piece of apparatus out there, which Brian Evans said that, the ISO rating is also affected by that. So you can use that as a guideline of where we're supposed to have stations, and it all goes off of the population, water sources and whatnot. So we thought that we need to keep that station where it's at. And here again, it's a roadmap, and maybe as things start developing, maybe that's not the case, but we feel strongly that with subdividing some of the land off, that it would help finance that piece of property.
You need 2 bays, you don't need 16 acres.
Right, no.
There's 16 acres out, 18
Yeah,
acres?
15,
16,
yeah.
15, 16 acres.
Right, yeah.
You don't need, nor are you interested in cutting the grass for 15 acres. or
Right.
18, 15 acres. All right, and then we talked about Steel City, and we talked about, so, here's the map of fire stations, proposed fire stations. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, so the yellow dots, 2 have the X's in them, so the one all the way to the left, that 164 zone would be Sealyko. That 161 zone is Lightsville. The purple area, that yellow dot's the southeastern station, and the top zone there, that's Steel City's firehouse. The triangle in the middle is the area we're looking to put a new fire station. That's about the central location of the township. With taking the topograph and how wide the area is in the purple area and the population in the 164 to 161 zone, that's about the best spot we can figure for the main station, which would have the ladder truck, the heavy rescue, an engine, and a pumper tanker in there. And then the satellite station would have at least 1 truck each.
So that's another thing that the committee would only, council's kind of approval to do is to start to identify potential properties in that area where a station could be built, and look into possible acquisition. All right, and I think that shows that there's, the township is still covered with 1 central station and some substations, 3 stations. All right, so the call, the heat map here, the call, right?
Yep.
We'll talk about this.
I'll have Scott do this. This was his.
Basically, this is a map from our reporting system, so we're required to report all our calls to the state and federal government. That's how we get our grants. This is for 2022, shows 792 calls. Anywhere that a green dot or a green blotch is basically a call that we've been on, and anywhere that it is redder is basically more calls in that area, is I guess the easiest way to say it. So what it shows here is you can see a lot of majority of our calls are in the I-78 corridor. That's a major place for us for accidents. And also, we do run mutual aid with, our partners in Howardtown and some of the other companies around us, but it gives you an idea of where we're at with call volume.
I think, Scott, though, that some of the call-outs on the heat map, so for example, the 378 corridor, you can see the concentrated areas there, that if we were only on one side of the township versus the other, this is sort of the area that we struggle with when we try to figure out how could we have a smaller footprint or less of a footprint, and the geography just really makes it very, very, very challenging.
If you flip to the next slide, that's over a much longer period, and you can really see that, that 78 corridor, there's a lot of traffic there. There's a lot of traffic on the Sealyko side, and obviously a lot of traffic on the Howardtown side. So, it gives you an idea.
Yeah, and
And this doesn't actually include EMS calls. We run ALS support for the ambulance, but we don't run BLS support. So there's, hundreds more, EMS calls that happen. So.
Right. Okay, I think if we go to the next slide, if you're done. Right, so we, like I said, we did look into a little bit of the estimated cost. And again, this is, you know, nothing is set in stone, but, you know, we're talking fire and rescue, we think properties that would be sold would bring in about 6.2 million. A new station would be about 14.8 million. You know, and you know, there's, you know, the Lower Saucon Fire and Rescue would contribute the proceeds from the sales of those properties, because they own that. I think a lot of township residents might need clarification on this. The township does not own the volunteer fire stations or the property. The volunteer fire company does as a 501c3 nonprofit.
Right. Correct.
And so, you know, they would have to donate the proceeds of the sales for the new construction. But the good thing is, there are grants available. So taxpayers would not be on the hook for the remaining $8 million if we can get some grants. So here's a list of grants. Some of them, FEMA grant, for example, is $500,000. You can apply for all these grants. Generally, though, to apply for these grants, though, you need plans. Am I understanding that correctly? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so most of the grants, especially the federal grants, they want shovel-ready blueprints. They want us to know, they want to know basically that we're ready to go before they give us the money.
Right.
So that's always been a challenge for us in the past with talks that we had in the department about, you know, maybe building stations. We never could get to that point where we were ready to go, and we just didn't have funds to do that.
Right.
So that's the thing with the federal government, we will need to have shovel-ready blueprints before we apply for any of these grants. And there's also a period in here that has to be, building has to be completed in order to qualify for certain aspects of the money.
Right, so I think, you know, that's kind of the second step after possibly identifying and possibly acquiring a property in the Polk Valley area to then you know, get blueprints that we can start to apply for some of these grants and see what happens.
And a lot of the grants now, they're very competitive, especially the federal grants now through FEMA. So we're going up against 5,000 or 6,000 other organizations that are trying to get money too. So, you know, there is, you know, a slight possibility that you may not get money. We may apply for it, but we may not get it. You never know. You never know when it comes to federal government and grants. It changes every year.
Right.
Sandy knows that, right?
I'm nodding with you. I'm nodding with you all along. Yeah, I understand that very clearly.
But these are just some basic grants. So like Firehouse Sub grants, that's the Ranger. They're funding Leary Foundation grant, that's that act with Dennis Leary. He's got a small micro grant. Lowe's charitable educational grant, I've seen stuff funded in that range. The county gaming grant, obviously, DMS Fire Company grant program, we get that one every year. Municipal Fire Department grants, is that available? Training Center grant, $100,000. And then the Emergency Operations Center grant could be up to $500,000, which is actually pretty nice. And then the Assistant Firefighters grant, the big one from the federal government, could be up to $1.5 million.
Yeah, and we did receive a $500,000 gaming grant for our ball field.
Yep.
And so hopefully, you know, they would consider the full $1 million for you know, public safety in the fire station.
Yep.
But we certainly put the application in when the time is ready. All right, I think we have, now the committee was also tasked looking at equipment needs that may be coming up. You want to talk just briefly, high level, about if we do this main station and these substations, how you wouldn't need as many vehicles, and you would just need different types of vehicles that could multi-purpose at different locations.
Right, so, let's just take, because it's in the report here, a bumper tanker. it says it right in the name, it can either be a pumper or it could be a tanker. So we have a 1,500 GPM pump and carry anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 gallons of water. We currently have one that carries, it fits that bill, carries 5 guys. We have another one that carries 2. So with the one that's carrying 5 guys, it makes it a little bit more versatile for us to use it as a second engine or a primary engine. You know, it's set up like an engine, it's just got a lot of water on it. And because it has a lot of water, there's a little bit less equipment, but there's enough equipment to outfit those 5 firemen or 6 firemen on that truck. So that's the kind of stuff we're looking to do. Same way with when we build our ladder truck, it's the same thing. It's, you know, it's set up as a quint, which can be used for aerial operations or firefighting activities. It could be a first-in pumper and, you know, do fire attack just as a regular engine would. So we are very mindful of trying to design equipment that's going to fit the needs of a bunch of different things. Because you go...
With the overall goal of having less fire trucks instead of more fire trucks.
And I think the example here would be that this pumper tanker, you know, we have 2 vehicles that are aging, and in the coming years, you know, whether it's a 2-range, 5-year range for both those vehicles, are going to need to be replaced. The goal would be that instead of replacing them with 2 vehicles at almost $3 million, they'd be consolidated to 1 vehicle at essentially half the savings. And then as our apparatus get older, you know, as we come up for replacement, we would have less apparatus to replace by being able to consolidate to some extent. But we're limited by what we can do right now, just physically. So for example, we can only put certain trucks in certain stations because the stations are that old. They were built when trucks were a different size, and we can't actually fit, we can't build a truck to do what the current vehicle does that fits in that same location. But we don't need a tanker over here where we have lots of fire hydrants. We need the tankers in the Lightsville and Wassergau sections of the township.
Right, so just like we need to modernize our stations for the next, station and substations for the next 2 years, we need to modernize our trucks for the next 20, 25, 30 years. As they come due. And, you know, we talked about that. There's currently in the fire services tax is 1.3 million. We owe 2 more payments, I think, on the ladder truck of $134,000 each. You know, so that's 270. You know, concern I have is the lead time. You know, on some of these trucks now, it seems to be getting out there years. Like, you know, there's a chance, it could be sooner, obviously, but if we ordered the truck, we might not get it until 2026 if we ordered the truck, you know, this year.
Right.
So I think that's an area that the committee also has to focus on and get back to the council before the end of the year on lead times for these trucks, and if it makes sense to order one, you know, before the end of the year, because we don't think we're going to get it till 2026. By that time, the tax brings in about $332,000 a year, and we're talking 2026, it's late 2026, that's almost another $900,000 in the fund, which already has 1.3 million in it, and we only owe 270 on the ladder truck. So it may be, you know, advisable, and we'll come back to council with specifics before the end of the year to put 25% down, lock in a price, or sign a contract for a truck that may not be delivered until 2026. I know, you know, Mark's been trying to get, we've been trying to get Ford pickup trucks for 2 years, and they haven't come. We've committed the money for it. So, you know, I think you know, the committee would probably like to have another briefing with council by the end of the year, if you guys think that's feasible, on equipment and possible locations in Polk Valley for council to consider. And but I think we've made a lot of good work, and we wanted to get something out there for the public to see kind of the direction that everybody on the committee is leaning and thinks after studying the issues that it's the best way to move forward. That doesn't mean there can't be some changes from that council recommends, certainly. I think it's great to have it on paper for the public to see. And I want to thank everybody on the committee. They attended meetings and were insightful, added a lot. I think we have a good committee, and I look forward to keep on working with you guys to get this done. And unless, does any, Donna or Anthony or anybody else have anything to say?
I just want to say, I appreciate working on this committee. When I was on council, I did sit on the fire service board, and I saw what these guys had, I saw how they were struggling, and I think this is a positive for the future of our fire service in the township. So thank you for bringing this.
All right, I'm going to ask you to sit there, though, because council might have questions for you. And Jason, if you want to open it up to other council members, I'm finished with the presentation.
Okay. Before I do that, first of all, I want to thank everybody for participating in this process. This is really what a first-class or a first-rate township does. They look to the future, they plan ahead, they figure out how they're going to accomplish these goals with a plan in mind. They put the right people in the decision-making positions or in the input providing positions, and I think the committee was staffed by the right people to provide that input that we need. I think this is important for the township. Many times I thank you guys publicly and privately for all the hard work that you do as volunteers, and I don't think that the residents of this township truly appreciate and understand your efforts that you put into this. You take time away from your family, away from your jobs, be volunteers, you're not paid for this. The least that the township can do is to provide support for you in continuing those efforts, because you guys are out there protecting us every day when a crisis hits, so we thank you for that. I'm going to talk a little bit later about some thoughts on the money part of this, so I'll save that for later, but I'll start with Mark, and if Mark has any questions or comments about it.
Yeah, just one or two, nothing too big. Have you guys been dialing this in for a while? A lot of times, have things changed over, like, say, the last 5 years, 10 years? Like, how long have you been really looking at this as to what might work the best?
Like 15 years.
15 years.
20 years.
Yeah, I mean, we had to do one hurdle after the next, and the first hurdle was getting all the fire departments together.
Yeah, I mean, the merger conversations have been going on for decades across the four.
Mark, before you joined council, I was the chair of the Fire Services Committee. I have been for 4 years. And previous councils kind of made it clear that we would like to do something big, and they obviously wanted to do something big, but the fire departments had to merge first.
So this has been,
That took a little longer than needed.
And I think, Mark, to say, we've been putting Band-Aids on facility stuff for quite a long time at the fire department level.
well, I think the public should actually talk to you guys, because I'll be honest with you, I had no idea how much you guys do. Really, how many calls you go on, and I don't think the public has any realization of that either. If you look at it, it's an average of 2 a day throughout the course of the year. And that's a lot, 365 days a year, guys. And we thank you for that. And I'd like to think we can help you guys get something a little bit better, make it easier on you, and better for all of us. So I think this is a good starting point.
Thank you. Well said, thanks, Mark. Sandy?
Well, I want to thank you guys too. I was a recipient of your efforts quite a few years ago, but you guys were there for us, and I have always been very supportive of you. So thank you. I think this is a great start, and I look forward to helping maybe you enact what we really need to do here. Thank you.
So I'll chime in at this point with my thoughts on how to pay for this. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think we've been fiscally responsible as a council in many ways, and I hope that the public appreciates that. And we treat the public's tax dollars like our own. And I think that spending money on this project or on this endeavor is money that's well spent, and I think the public would support this. my thoughts on this are, and I just jotted some notes down here, and again, these are not written in stone, but these are just some general guidelines and parameters that I think we can try to work with. And certainly I'm open to other suggestions on this. When you're talking about selling CYCO lights from the southeastern, that would net, let's say $6.2 million. And again, that's a rough estimate, based upon a non-official appraisal of the properties, but let's work with that number of 6.2 million. We then have the grants that Scott, you were kind enough to outline for us, and if my math is correct, those grant figures total somewhere between $3.1 and $4.9 million of grant money that's available, which is a substantial portion of this, right? We're going to need that.
I would just say, Jason, the one caution is that we unfortunately have had more trouble getting emergency service grants than in several other disciplines. So I would think we should just calculate on the lower end of that.
And that's fair. That's
just
fair.
So we're not
I'm just providing ranges.
Yeah,
as to
no,
what
I
those
know.
numbers are. And I agree. I think it's better to be conservative with those estimates than to be optimistic, because then we'll be surprised with a bill that's $2 or $3 or $4 million higher than what we're anticipating. So that brings us to somewhere between $9.3 and $11.1 million. And if my math is correct, the total cost of the new centrally located fire station, as well as the remodels or the construction of the substations, comes out to about $15.5 million. That's a big number, but I think we have an opportunity here because of Lower Saucon Fire Rescue's willingness to share their resources for something that's for the greater good, and also the township's willingness to share its resources for the greater good. So if we look at our balance sheet, the money that the township has, and I'd asked Kathy to pull some numbers for me. The township currently has $9.3 million in reserves. Now, some of that money is restricted, some of it's unrestricted. $6.3 million is restricted, $3 million is unrestricted. We also are going to have some additional revenue coming in this year. The past 2 years, we've allocated about $1 million for large paving projects. We did Saucon Terrace last year. This year, they're doing Steel City. And each of those is about $1 million. So we may want to look at doing another $1 million project, because I think it's good for the community to have good paved roads, especially neighborhoods that haven't been paved for 30 years. I think people deserve to have their roads paved in good condition.
We also drive $1 million fire trucks on those roads, so we need to be good roads.
Right. Sure.
1.3 ton.
Yeah, 1.5 for 11.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, we have $418,000 roughly left in American Relief Fund money. And then we have some revenues that are coming in through the end of this year, which project to be about another $1.5 million in surplus that's available. So my thoughts on this are, we don't have to do anything now, but this is when the budget part of our meeting comes up, is to be proactive and try to allocate some monies toward this, so that the bill that we get hit with isn't a sticker shock, and that we've at least planned for a huge capital expenditure. And what I'm thinking is, if we were to take half of that restricted fund and earmark it towards this project, that would be $3.15 million. We took $100,000 of American Relief Fund money, and if we took half of the projected surplus that we have here coming in through the end of the year, that gives us $4 million. That would be earmarked for this project and set as a, I guess it would be restricted or unrestricted, Kathy, fund for this purpose, so that we can start planning and moving forward with this in earnest. And then looking at the funding for this, if we were to do that, that brings us out to about $13.3 to $15.1 million for a project that's projected to cost about $15.5 million. Again, these are just numbers that I don't want to say we're spitballing, because it's a little more sophisticated than that, but we haven't gotten formal estimates, and I think that these are decent ranges that we're working with. So that brings us to $13.3 to $15.1 million. And then my thought is, this isn't going to happen overnight. This is going to be a several-year process. But I think that the township deserves to have this move along in a way that the project is brought to a fruition in the near future. And I think Lower Saucon Fire Rescue deserves that too, because they're making a significant commitment to this process. So I think, you know, to have this on a 3-year plan is not unrealistic. You know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of identifying property, you know, and getting all the approvals and starting the process on this. But I think that we should look to try to move things along, you know, within that time frame or thereabout. And if we were to do that, and we took, let's say, $500,000 to $700,000 per year, because, you know, we're fortunate as a township that we do have a little bit of a surplus in revenue because of the earned income tax and some real estate taxes. But, you know, we're not necessarily flush with cash, as some people would, you know, like the public to believe that we're just rolling in cash and that we don't need to have other sources of revenue. That's not true at all, especially when you have large ticket items like this that are going to cost $15.5 million and provide for better public safety for the long term for this community. But I think if you were to take another $500,000 to $700,000 per year over 3 years, that adds another $1.5 to $2.1 million to that. And that figure, if my math is correct, that comes out to a total of $14.8 to $17.2 million. So I think that this is within reach, and I think it's feasible because, you know, we've been fiscally responsible, and you are as well, and you're willing to share, you know, your resources with us, and we are with you. So I like the idea of this, and I appreciate Tom and everybody that was on the committee working really hard on this, because this is what good township governance does. It plans for the future and it provides better services for its residents. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Priscilla,
Yeah,
please.
Thank you. Last meeting, I mentioned that the newly formed library committee has to be in public because of the sunshine law. And I think that also applies to this. Then correct me if I'm not. It's not, because the sunshine law says that any state or local government body and all subunits appointed by that body that perform an essential government function and exercises authority to take official action or render advice. It can include boards, councils, authorities, commissions, and committees. So in my humble opinion, this applies to this committee. And let me just tell everybody, there are penalties for violating the Sunshine Act. In addition to being assessed attorney's fees, any member of the agency, which is all the committee members, who is found to have been willingly violated the act will face criminal charges and subject to fines $100 to $1,000 for the first offense and $500 to $2,000 for the second offense. The fine must be paid personally. The agency cannot pay that fine. So I just want to make sure that in the future that this committee fulfills their duties to the Sunshine Law. On the other hand, I want to say thank you for putting together a great presentation. I think that this is good. We've been talking about in various different ways this, and you guys have been there. I've been there a long time ago, and you know, I've always appreciated everything you've done, and want you to have the best of what you can have. This is a really good, you know, presentation. I'm also concerned about, and I always forget the initials, the ISO ratings, because, you know, losing service in an area or not closest to a fire hydrant affects your taxes. And, you know, we don't want to see people losing that.
It affects your insurance.
Should I repeat everything I said?
No, you said he great. It affects your insurance, it's not insurance.
Well, it still affects your
Right,
bottom
it's
dollar.
money coming out of your pocket.
Right, it's money coming out of our pocket.
I'd like you to address that, though. You feel, yeah,
Are you interrupting me?
no.
Sounded like it to me.
Clarification.
You are allowed that. Training, I think that, you guys gotta get trained. I know it's hard because, you have to take a segment of all this volunteer work that you do and have it for your family. That's so important, and it's hard. I know it, as being in other volunteer organizations. Anyway, so I'd like to see this next committee meeting put out there on advertise the meeting, and that way then people can come to it and watch and see what's going on according to the Sunshine Law. Also, do you have a developer in mind for the Saucon property?
We haven't contacted him.
We don't know.
We don't speak as a committee.
Okay, all right. And also, and it's unfortunate we don't have the Saucon Valley Partnership in existence anymore, because when it was first founded, one of the pluses, one of the many pluses, was that it gave you a step up. So if your grant application came in and you were a member of a council of governments, it elevated you to that next level. Now we don't have that, we can't put that on there, we can't add that letter supporting you because it's not in existence anymore, and that's really sad, because, you know, you could have had another level up higher. For now, that's all I'm gonna say, and again, thank you for all your time and effort put into this, and I appreciate it.
May I ask for clarification?
Sure.
You mentioned the Saucon Valley Partnership. As I recall, it was Hellertown Borough that disbanded the Saucon Valley Partnership. Is that correct?
I think it was a both-sided thing, I don't know.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, what the point is,
What from?
it's not in existence today, okay?
Because I know it's.
But
You're not even be honest about
but
it.
it's not, it's
You're not
not.
be honest about
Hold
it.
on,
You're not be
hold on.
honest about it.
So it's not in existence because Hellertown Borough chose to pause, as I recall, was the first term, and then they chose at the end of the year to formally disband it, is my recollection. Sandy, do you have the same recollection? You do? Thank you. All right, thank you.
Rewrite.
All right.
Okay.
All right,
Rewrite this.
all right, thank you for the clarification. So,
You should open all your.
okay, you done, Priscilla?
I want to, again.
Oh, no, I'm just getting started, but go ahead, I'm done for now.
No, I mean, on this topic, are you done?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Tom, please.
Yeah,
Anything else to add?
Thank you. Brian, did you have something?
I did, just two things. The one thing we probably didn't illustrate enough in this is, the idea from the committee is a phased plan, like that we have to do, there is a certain order to things to be able to ensure that we can continue to operate service. So I think as we get a little more understanding and deeper into the plan, that'll clear up what those phases would be, and, you know, A happens before B and C. And then I just wanted to comment that, you know, we're pretty proud that we were the first merged department in Northampton County, and we've been able to grow on that. So these things are not easy, looking 20, 25, even further down the road, balancing, you know, today, the next couple of years, and then even beyond that. So I don't think any plan is perfect, but I do think we have pretty good confidence that we've, you know, taken the best from all angles and brought it into, you know, trying to be, create a plan that will work for the future and is responsible, not just today.
Yeah, and I think as far as the ISO rating, I think it can get better with this plan, because you're gonna have a centrally located station, main station, and you're still gonna have some substations on the edges of the township. Right now, all the stations are on the edges of the township. None of them are centrally located, because they've all been there, mostly since the early 1900s, some the late 1800s, and the township has grown, and the residential properties have been built in different areas, So I think the ISO rating, I think it's an opportunity to achieve a better ISO rating. I'm not worried about that at all, because I think just the location of the stations are going to give you an advantage on quality.
And I think sometimes that, you know, we get concerns amongst our ranks of losing history and some of those types of things. And really, somebody said years ago when we were having the merger conversations that, you know, it's on us to, you owe it to the history to be able to not become sort of extinct and keep moving that needle forward and being progressive and anticipating what's next.
It's on history.
It's correct, and that's what another sort of objective that we're trying to do. That no plan is perfect, but we want to we want to add more history, not become.
Tom, I have a question. Did you evaluate the schoolhouse, the southeastern schoolhouse on the southeastern property? It's historic, it's old.
Right.
Yeah, so that wasn't brought into this plan per se, but my personal opinion of that would be that, I mean, and this is just my opinion, that structure would stay. I mean, that is part of history of the township. We've always maintained it, kept up with it, so it's in good condition. It would be a shame to lose that.
I would want to see you using it.
Yeah, and a thought on that is, you know, perhaps.
Wasn't I?
Oh, you were done.
No,
You were done.
you were wrong.
I apologize. Go ahead.
I think that it could be tied in somehow with the park, you know, and kind of, you know, evolve out into that. because, you know, it does have history to it.
I think that during the committee meetings, I think that was said, that that was a separate entity that would remain, and we kind of worked around it.
Right,
Yes.
that's what I
Yeah,
thought I
that
read,
was-
but I
That was
just wanted,
preserved already in our minds and not to be changed.
okay, I just wanted to double check, thank you.
Well, we kept you here
Hold on,
long.
I don't think Priscilla's done, let's see if she's done.
All right.
She's done, Priscilla?
The other thing's still on.
Okay, I think she's done, too bad.
She's not. All right, well, thank you, we've kept you here long enough, thank you for everything, and I look forward to our next meeting, where we'll make more progress, and we're hoping to report back to council with more information by the end of the year, and hopefully maybe some decisions for council to make. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
I'm sorry, Jason, can I add something
go ahead.
quick? Both Councilwoman De Leon and someone from the audience raised the Sunshine Act issue. And I did, at the last meeting, agree with Priscilla that the library committee was an agency under the Sunshine Act. I do not think that this fire services capital subcommittee is the same animal as the library committee. So I don't think it's clear that this fire services capital subcommittee is an agency under the Sunshine Act. So I just wanted to put that up.
And the record will reflect that I disagree with you, so.
all right. Well,
Can you sign in?
I think we can all agree, or most of us can agree, that fire services and public safety are important. And I think this is a good endeavor that we've undertaken here, and, it will speak for itself.
I will agree to that.
All right, so, we have no developer items. We now have township business items, presentation of the 2024 draft budget. Director of Finance Assistant Manager Kathy has prepared a draft for the 2024 budget. This is the exact.
Okay.
We have a draft of a presentation. Today, I will present the proposed draft budget. At the 18th meeting, we'll present the revised 24 budget for approval. At the 19th, on October 19th, we prepare the budget for public inspection and advertisement. And then the plan is to approve the budget at the November 15th meeting. 23 accomplishments. We hired 4 additional police officers. We ordered and received 2 police SUVs, 3 mobile license plate readers, 1 fixed license plate reader. Public Works, we ordered and received a roller, a wood chipper, a grader attachment for the skid steer. We completed the Old Philadelphia Pike Bridge rehabilitation. The Black River Road culvert replacement is still on the schedule for fall of this year. Steel City paving project is currently in progress. Hope Valley Park pickleball courts began and will continue this fall and will be finished in the spring of '24. Easton Road baseball field project has begun and will again continue into the spring of '24. And the Heller Homestead improvements, the windows in the widow's house and the sun porch in the main house are ongoing.
For 2024 projected revenue, we are touching on the larger items. As you can see, real estate, we're projecting $2,012,500 collectively. We're not proposing a tax increase. The enabling taxes, which is your EIT and your local services tax, we're projecting to come in at $3,636,500. The landfill hosting fees, we're projecting at $2,003,000. County, state, federal share funding, which includes your fire relief funding, your pension relief funding, and grants, we're projecting coming in at $510,628 for next year. All the other incomes, which includes police fines and permits and all of that other day-to-day operational revenue, come in at $622,850. Interest is one of our bigger items. You'll see we're projecting almost $1 million in interest this year in all funds. However, the feds are projecting to increase the interest rate again by 1/4 point in November. The manager and I are working with other financial industries to try to put our reserves in funding to hold that interest rate before the Federal Reserve decides to decline it. So hopefully that will continue to have a decent year next year for interest rates. So the total projected revenue would be $9,382,478. And with the projects that council has approved, and you'll see in the budget that we had money set aside for them this year. It's more than likely due to when they were approved, the expenses being recognized next year. The $1.5 million will be transferred from the reserve. The next slide, we have this every year. We wanted to show council the three major sources of revenue and how that has increased over the years between the real estate tax, the enabling tax, and the landfill listing fees. This slide also shows the revenue compared from last year to this year. As you can see, the bump ups were significant in the interest rates and in the local share, and a slight increase for the sanitation.
Just
from
the
budget
green,
from 1 year.
the green line shows 2023 and the blue line shows projected for 2024.
So other than the interest rates from what was projected from this year, that's the most significant revenue line item that's demonstrated here. As for the use of the landfill funding over the last couple of years, this chart shows what it had been used for. We'll be coming up towards the end of the year. We might be needing some to replenish our fund balance, beginning in for cash flow purposes, which I had indicated during the semi-annual report. But overall, we've been fortunate in the last couple of years to be able to use the majority of that funding for capital and infrastructure improvements. This slide, I think, is a fair representation, or we think is a fair representation as to where your tax dollars go. A lot of people pay taxes as an overall lump sum. I pay, $10,000 in taxes. This slide shows how the percentage-wise of what your dollar goes to compared to the county, the school district, and the municipality.
Property tax comparison to neighboring townships. We looked at the population and the square mileage, so we think, I think it's 9 different communities just to compare Lower Saucon. Lower Saucon does have the 7th lowest property tax in Northampton County.
This slide shows that the grants that we have outstanding, the projects that are associated with that, as we have told council and promised council before, when we have a capital improvement project, we look for grants to offset any of those expenses. And these are some of the outstanding items that we have. And once these projects are complete, we're set to receive $1.3 million in grant revenue once they're done. In the total expenses, to show a balanced budget, our operating expenses is $8,684,027. We're transferring to capital reserves. The $1,890,000 is $1 million to the capital fund that we have suggested when you look at the expenses for another paving project. $500,000 from ARPA to pay for the East Road Ball Field, and $390,000, which was our annual allocation to our capital fund that we do every year. And we presented to council at the capital plan. When we presented that, we said that we would be bringing to you a slight increase in appropriating funding to that to make sure that we have a healthy balance going forward. And as for revenue for what's projected coming in next year, that would be $308,451. That would be revenue over expenses.
This chart again just shows more of the line items broken out. Again, the green line shows the 2023 budget amount, and the blue line shows the 2024 budget amount. So keeping the budgets very close.
And now to our general fund expenditures. In council, we are projecting $56,194. That's inclusive of permitted council compensation, if council members choose to accept it. I know there's several council members that have waived that option. And it also includes funding for attendance to PSATs or any other conference council wishes to attend, maintenance on your computers and security parameters on your laptops, and also contributions that council has historically made to 501c3s, including the youth sports groups and some of the other nonprofits in the area, such as the Miracle League and FP. The administrative department, which consists of the manager and the assistants, and much of the expenses as it comes to ordinance adoption and advertising, comes to $526,600, which is an increase of $20,000 from 2023. Of that, there really is not too many line items in the actual budget that have significantly increased. It's just a matter of inflation and contractual obligations. The next item is finance, which is $291,850. That's inclusive of the TCC, or if you look on the actual spreadsheets, the items listed under 402 and 403. So that's an increase of $12,535. Increases are projected to go up for banking services, as we have more money and we're collecting more interest. The banks, we're negotiating very well with them, and they're working with us, and we have incurred a couple extra $100 in fees as a result of it, but certainly offsets the amount that we're receiving. And contractual obligations as well for our non-uniform employee. The other item is our auditing services, which has gone up. The reason for that is when we had transitioned to escrowing for engineering for residents, for sewage enforcement and grading, there's more accounts for them to audit. So that's reflected. Legal, we're budgeting it at $318,500, which is a decrease of $133,560. We're hoping that most of this litigation will be tied up soon, and that's about all I can say at this point. We understand it's ongoing, but we'll present to council monthly the reports that we get from the legal consultants and keep you up to date. Information and technology is $70,000 and is up $9,720. The big item on here that we wanted to bring to council's attention is that we are looking into upgrading our website. It is not end user friendly, and I'm sure it's a little it's not user friendly either. So we are looking into different companies, and we'll be presenting that at a future date to try to really streamline and make our website look much better and easily used. engineering, we're budgeting at $175,000. A lot of the items that we have ongoing that might be attached to grants have engineering involved in that as well. So some of the expenses will be coming from those grant funds that we have. So we're just projecting a couple of projects they might be doing, and they're just Hanover's general engineering needs of the township to rely on them. Buildings and grounds, it's $238,550. We are constantly looking into this budget to try to find items that we can renegotiate with our contractors. That includes any maintenance agreements and phone service, internet service, all of that. In this particular budget, we are asking for funding to repair the lobby floors or make some kind of a repairs in some way, the tax entrance. And we also want to, we've done the administrative office, we've done the police department, we want to repaint and repurpose the council room. It's been 20 years, I think. All of the insides.
Where did the time go, Kathy?
I don't know, I just realized I've been here 17 years. Police department. This is $3,592,722, or 72, excuse me. The amount has increased due to the 4 officers that are hired. We adjusted our budget in 2022. Not all the officers have been, we've had retirees, we've had people out, we've had new people coming in. So I don't think we're going to get the full complement of how much it's going to fully cost for all the officers in place, probably until the 2025 budget at that point. But there's always a flux between people that are coming in and retirees and people leaving. So we feel that this is a pretty good amount to cover everybody that council approved contractually. Also, I want to note again that the MMO is significantly lowered. That will hold for 2 years. The next valuation will fully recognize the 4 other officers. So there's a good chance that it will bump up again unless we really do get some really high gains in our plan. And we also, just so council's aware, the community events, we have money in there for, and some of them are in and out, such as No Shave November. We have revenue books on the one side for people who donate to No Shave November in December, and then the expense when the police department make the donation comes out of their budget as well. And we have funding in there for National Night Out. The other items that the police department wanted were the new patrol lights. And we're also looking at partitions maybe in the police department for officers in the squadron. Fire department, there's really not much change. We're increasing a little bit in the general expense because of the township pays for and has historically paid for the testing of the fire hose and the ladder. That's just something that I think that Township Council years ago wanted to ensure that all those equipments were tested and inspected, and we agreed to pay for it. So we increased that a little bit based on the expenses for this year. Zoning is $262,610. The only thing that they're really requesting is they're still looking for an integrative software that residents can use to look up properties and find zoning districts and things like that. So they can kind of help themselves as well before they come and ask for specific questions, that they might be able to understand what they are limited in doing on their property on their own. Emergency management, crossing guards, these are all pretty much the same. We decreased a little bit in emergency management for the hazmat. We typically help the Lower Saucon Fire Rescue if there's an incident on one of our main roads for them, and they have to call in somebody to clean it. We usually try to help them out and pay for that. We have funding for the dog control and the compost. We added a different additional amount on the compost. We're looking at new ways of doing it. Right now, our Public Works Department is transporting the waste to the facility. It's saving us quite a bit of money doing it that way. So we'll continue to look at this and make necessary changes that would best suit the residents and help us lower expenses. The Public Works Department, all inclusive, is $1,687,959. The items here that we, outside of what we normally pay, is Roger is looking for cleaning out the oil and grid separator in the garage. That's like close to a $9,000 to $10,000 expense, and we do that every couple of years. The other item is that we are requesting council to consider funding for an assistant for the Director of Public Works, to add another employee. Under the Parks program, we have increased this slightly. Hopefully we won't have to use this. We're trying to research and get grants, and we have received grants for Town Hall Park for replacement, but as you know, our playgrounds have reached their depreciable life. Finding apparatus to replace parts that are missing is becoming a little bit more difficult and definitely taking way longer to even get. So we did budget additional money in there for that, for maintenance in case we don't get time to replace the equipment in time, because we're trying to hit a park every year. Summer program came under budget this year, but we're putting in the same amount for her next year, as well as the senior program. The pool reimbursement program has gone fairly well. We were projecting paying out $6,500, but we're keeping it at $11,000 because more people might be willing to, buy passes next year and get reimbursement for it. That is for the parks. The library contribution, we had put in $100,000 in there prior to council's offer. That can be amended if you would like. We're going to ask your direction on that one. As for the conservation, we moved the expenses for the recycling event to the conservation or the EAC, have it under their umbrella, the point entity that handles it, so it seems more appropriate for that expense to go into that budget. And as for insurance, the biggest item here is the increase, as you can see, for our workers' comp. We've had several claims, and we're going to be projecting that to be pretty high for the next couple of years. The manager and I are going to be looking at other avenues to try to limit that. And that outside of the transfer that you'll see in the, that goes to the capital fund from our reserves, that balances the budget of 10 million, general fund budget at 10,882,478. Which you can see is 4.3% increase overall. Special funds, under O2, which is blue in your document that I provided you. This consists of the funds that are specifically related to taxes that can only go towards specific items, such as open space, the fire tax, and the state liquid fuel funding that we receive from, that's PennDOT and related to road work. The fire tax, we're projecting to bring in $332,000 again, no tax increase requested. We're anticipating $50,000 in revenue, which brings us to $705,000 next year. We're projecting that we're going to need $323,000 from the fund balance, only due to, you'll see in the expense of 500. In the budget, it's 705,000. On the PowerPoint, it's accounting for payment number 4 for the ladder truck, grant writer, and we have 565,000 approximately in there. If for whatever reason council decides that you want to move forward with the next vehicle, that we'll have money next year to put a down payment on. That's traditionally with the fire vehicles, that they'll get a better rate in the total cost of the vehicle if we put money down first. For liquid fuels, we are projecting revenue next year at $899,000. We're going with $356,120 coming out of the fund balance. Every one of these we are using our fund balance. That's fine. We have plenty. We have 1.7 million currently in our liquid fuel funding. So this will pay for the next paving project that Public Works Department is going to do. It offsets some of the cost for the equipment, for the roller and the backhoe, which the Public Works Department is requesting. You'll see in the capital fund.
Paper.
Or paver, sorry, paver. Winter maintenance pays for the salt and the cinders. We pay all of our street lighting and other items for public works. The additional amount that we're requesting council to consider is the $48,000 for cameras to be put on the traffic lights to remove or replace the need for the sensor loops that are in the road itself. When maintenance is done on the roads, they can be disrupted, broken. It costs money to have them come out and redo it. So these cameras are they're not new technology now, but they're much newer than what we have currently. So our Public Works Director is recommending replacing the 4 that are owned by the township and that we would consider asking the shopping centers to upgrade theirs. Open space, we budgeted for consultants for $46,000. We put $1 million in there. Council should consider a property. $75,000 for just the maintenance and lawn mowing care of the properties that are owned, and $500,000 for Eastern Road Ball Field that would cover under maintenance. So that comes to $1,621,000. So we'd be utilizing, since we're not collecting any money truly in that fund anymore, since the tax was repealed, other than interest earnings, we're requesting council to appropriate a $1,416,000 from the fund balance to make sure that there's enough funding available of those, especially the open space purchase, if council should consider anything next year. In the capital fund, Some of these things are holdover, some of these things are new. The budget is balanced at $5,089,000. We're still looking at the repairs for Cidersville inside. We've done some, but not to complete out the grant that we have left open. We're asking for $30,000 for more security cameras. We have some security cameras that are supposed to be in place now for the parks, but there are other areas that we need to address as well. We're looking at replacing police units, number 160 and 168 for $155,000. And again, the Public Works, the backhoe and the paver, between the 250 in state fund and the 569, that would cover those. And just so council knows, I did apply for $400,000 for the paver.
And there's a good chance, as we spoke about last time, that the paver and the backhoe, one of them will not get here until 2025. Possibly both of them, but we need to order so that we can get them in 2025. But we do need to put the budget number in there in case we get smiled upon
Miraculously come in.
and they show up.
Show up and we'll already paid.
Yeah.
We have 2 projects identified in the stormwater repairs, so that is being budgeted at $150,000. I believe they're detention ponds.
Yeah, Glenview and
Rotors, rotor fund, rotors, yeah. I believe they're both on our MS4, so we're working towards getting some of those projects knocked out. The Reading Drive culvert, we need to get that done by, I believe, June 30th. So that is on priority list for our Public Works to do, and we do have funding for that as well. We put aside funding for the active transportation plan again. We'll continue to work on that. Robin Court stormwater replacement, we put funding in for that. We'll need the engineer to go out there and put that out for bid. And
yeah, the engineer's already working on that. We spoke about that a meeting or 2 ago. We have a stormwater pipe that's degraded and needs to be replaced. So Brian is working on a plan to replace that.
we have another paving project, if council's willing to consider contracting out again. And of course, we have funding in for our parks. I know this year we budgeted $3 million. We're only doing the pickleball court, so a lot of this is carryover and adjustments based on what council approved for the Eastern Ball Field and the playground equipment and the Pope Bell Park Trail, which that also is, all of those are scheduled to be done quite soon in the next year. And the historical sites, we did put, this is also another item where it's kind of a transfer over. I budgeted a certain amount this year. I'm not sure exactly when the gentleman's going to be finished with the windows in the widow's house. So we're just trying to, whenever those projects are done, we want to make sure that there's, budgetarily speaking, enough money to pay it out without having to come back to council and amend the budget to do so. So that is our plan for next year. And hopefully,
Just shows it a different way.
yep, this shows it in the charts. So
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Our 2024 projects that we expect to get done are the Reading Drive culvert replacement, Oak Valley Trail resurfacing, pickleball courts, the road ball field, 2 new police vehicles, asphalt paver and backhoe for Public Works, upgrade to the township website, retrofit 2 stormwater basins, Glenview and Bluefield, repair degraded stormwater pipe on Robin Court, replace the upper playground at the Town Hall Park, Public Works Department paving and chip program, they're normal, and then if council so chooses, the paving and stormwater project by a contractor.
Why wasn't this PowerPoint in our packet? Like, it would have been really helpful, I thought.
So we've got none of that.
Let's start.
Any questions or comments for Kathy?
I think just the library, I think we should budget 125 for that. You know, we haven't received a no yet. They voted no, but that doesn't mean, maybe they have a second thought.
Okay.
So,
I'll agree with Mark, and other than that, I have nothing. Thank you, and thank you, Kathy, did a great job.
Just a couple of handful of observations. 3% raises across the board for staff, I think, is appropriate. I think that should be the discretion of the township manager as to how to allocate it. I mentioned earlier during the presentation by Lower Saucon Fire Rescue about allocating $4 million for fire station and equipment planning, so I'd like to see that. Kathy, you had mentioned the crossing guard fee. I had received a report that there was a period of time when the crossing guards were not present. I don't know if we get any, and this isn't necessarily related to the budget. Well, I guess it is in a way. But that crossing guards were not present during certain periods of time. I don't know if we received a reporting from Town as to how that money is being allocated, but if we're paying for it, we want to make sure that they're actually having the service provided.
I can definitely reach out to the chief of police there and see how that's being scheduled.
For the parks, the $2.5 million, Mark, you brought up a few meetings ago the idea of trying to have a turf field constructed up at Polk Valley. I don't think $2.5 million is necessarily going to cover all that, but that's something that we need to look at and maybe address at some point in the future, the cost of that. We're going to look into next year or thereafter. And then the other question I have is with regard to the capital expenditures and project money. We had received word that the Meadows Road bridge is subject to being replaced probably in the spring or early summer of next year. I assume that all of the improvements there will be taken care of by the county since it's a county-owned bridge. Is there anything that we would necessarily need to allocate for it once that bridge reopens to address traffic flow patterns or anything else that we should be budgeting for at this point?
I don't think so. We do have some money in the active transportation plan to put the Sherrows on and get that stuff done.
Okay.
So,
All right, and then Mark, you brought up the 125 for the library. I think that's appropriate as well. Other than that, I don't have any other comments on it. Priscilla?
I think 125,000 would be great to pay Hal from the library. I think that would be a good number to start with. I also, this PowerPoint that you just did, Kathy, hot off the press, can I go on the website tomorrow so that people, it really explains and helps going through the pages.
Mark did a lot of that work on the PowerPoint. Do better
Share,
credit too.
share the compliment then.
yeah, go.
Okay. So question, some of these numbers, like data processing, was really high up there, and that was because of all that IT stuff and
Well, like I had mentioned, we budget a large amount in replacement because we are looking at our servers. Our IT individual is, I think we have 4 or 5 servers that handle different functions separately. So every 7 years, they should be replaced. So he's looking at replacing, looking at what he's working on one right now to replace for this year. And then next year, hopefully get into a rotation where we're not putting ourselves against the wall and having to replace all of them at one time. The other item, like I had mentioned, is that we are looking at different companies and providing a website.
that was all on that one slide, so that was good. So, and then I guess the highway part was up like 46%. What was that?
Well, as I had indicated, a lot of the stuff in there is pretty much the same except for the services for the grit and oil separator. And we're budgeting again for removal of dead trees. That's a large expense because our guys can't always do it. Although they do a lot. The other item is that we're asking guidance from council on this, is that we were looking at hiring an assistant to the director of public works. was the bigger item in that whole department.
Okay. And then there was, maybe we're gonna write it down. Shit.
Yeah, I do. Thanks, Major.
Read up yourself.
Go. No, she's not done. She wants a break. She's taking it.
Okay.
So I agree with the servers and the IT upgrades, you know, because hopefully there's some security that comes with that, so it won't get hacked again. It's better to have the newer stuff. Paving project, I hope Mark and Roger are looking at another neighborhood that they can recommend. That hasn't historically come from council. The Saucon Terrace and Steel City came from Roger and Peter Marshall, our interim manager, identified those as the two we need last time, so hopefully you'll be able to do something. I've also heard that there were not any crossing guards in Hellertown that the police officers were doing. So that can be verified, because we're paying for crossing, right?
We are paying for it.
We addressed the fire services funding level at the committee, and you know, with all that we talked about earlier, I think it's good just to leave it at that. Right now, I'm glad that we put $565 away in case we need a down payment for a truck. I think that's a reasonable amount to budget for. What else? There was parks, and I think our staff has done a wonderful job this year, and inflation is still through the roof. It's 3.7% in August, and that's the watered down number from the Biden Labor Department. It doesn't include gas for our employees who get to work, drive, and doesn't include food. Doesn't include a lot of housing, though. Housing's up. There's some numbers on that. So I wanted to, with 36 employees, I wanted to propose as we have in the past 2 years, a $2,500 end of year bonus to help them with inflation. We have a lot of contracts with our roads crew and our police in particular that only call for 3% raises when inflation is much more than that. Thank you, Joe Biden. So we have 36 employees. We have 8 in the office, 17 in the police force, and I believe 11 the roads crew. So $2,500 for each of them will be $90,000, plus a FICA tax of $68.85. This money, we still have approximately $400,000 in unused American Relief planning money. I think this would be a good way to spend $96,000 of that $400,000, over $400,000 in that fund, which has to be spent by next year anyway. And I think our employees deserve it. I think they do a great job. Mark, you've been here for a while now. Would you like to talk about the job our employees do?
We have a great set of employees here. It's been a pleasure to join the team and work with everyone. Been working with all the employees in the office, and we've come together very well and are working very well, trying to work to give the residents the best service that we can. I think we're doing pretty good with that. Those residents that give us a call, or sometimes they're upset, but we settle them down and we do our best to answer their questions. Roger and the public works guys are out in the public every day. They do a fantastic job. Every now and then you have a resident that gets upset, but again, we'll talk to them. I take any call from any resident that I get. And the police are doing great. The unions have been working very well with us. At this point, we're getting along very good and have a great working relationship, and everyone's putting their best foot forward to do right by the residents.
Well, I'd like to give these 36 employees, $2,500 each as a way to help them, one, fight inflation, increased cost of getting to work, housing and food to feed their families. And also, there are higher paying jobs out there that a lot of these people are qualified to do. I prefer that they don't leave. I would like to retain our employees because I do think they do a good job. I think it's the township's most valuable asset are employees. And so I would ask council to support this. I'll make a motion that is added to the budget. This $2,500 per employee for a total of $90,000.
I'll second that.
Seconded by.
Before we have roll, Tom, to that point, I just read today that the Department of Labor released some statistics, and the job openings number is much higher than what was being forecast, which suggests that there is demand for good employees. And we're competing with private business and other townships for quality staff. Unfortunately, we have a good staff here that's been for a long time and tenured, and I think it's very important for retention to keep them.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we've done the past 2 years, and I'd like to do it again this year. It's not something that the employees should get used to happening every year, because I think the economic circumstances will eventually change. But I would like to at least do it for 1 year.
I don't think you need a motion to do that. This is the draft budget, so I think if there's a consensus of council, you just direct Mark to put that on the budget, on the draft budget. The motion will come at your next meeting when you authorize to advertise it. That's what approves it.
Okay.
Mark, do you agree?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes,
I agree. Priscilla? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay, Tom?
Yes.
Well, before you proceed, that would be reflected in the 2023 or 2024?
Well, I'd like them paid out, perhaps maybe the first paycheck in December, so.
Okay, so I'll bring back a resolution at a future council meeting to make that transfer.
Yeah.
But that's not, the only amendment to what's been presented tonight will be the that showing that cost as a recognized cost in this year and increasing the library.
Yeah, in past years, we paid the first paycheck in December.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's do that again.
Yeah, I can remember my question. Kathy, line item, I guess it's 461 of the budget. We talked about professional services, 46,000. Is that a proposed, I don't think that is.
Oh, is that under O2? Fund O2?
It's 461, I didn't write this numbers down.
46,000, it's got to be under open space. So that would be your consultant fees, your engineers, your appraisals, your legal fees that are
Professional services.
professional services overall
Okay, I thought.
for any acquisition
That
you
was
might
like
do.
a job opening or something. I didn't
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think that concludes our,
Actually, Jason, one more
good
thing.
work.
Public Works, I want to circle back to that. The Assistant Director,
Yes.
I'd like to have Roger look at if he wants to do it in-house or bring in someone from the outside. Roger, I think, is going to be starting to think about retirement. So we should probably start grooming somebody to be his replacement in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So I don't think that would be a bad idea. And also, what do people think about maybe adding 1 or 2 more workers to Public Works? We save a lot of money when they do the work rather than outsourcing it. And I spent a lot of time with Roger in the last couple of weeks and Mark going over some of our equipment purchases and what we have. And we seem to be a little short on staffing. Their list of things to do is endless. Is it always going to be endless? Perhaps. But maybe it's something worth looking into a little bit. Mark, maybe you want to have a conversation with him and see what he thinks?
Yeah, I can do that.
I know it's hard to find good guys, especially guys with CDLs and stuff. Maybe it makes the snow plowing easier so they don't have to work all night long. They can come out in shifts, something like that.
I'll talk to Roger and bring that back.
Yeah.
Good idea, Mark. All right, I think that concludes our discussion of the 2024 draft budget. We have no miscellaneous business items. We are now at council staff reports. Mark, any report for us?
Just wanted to let you know that Easton Road ball field started last week. They did a lot of the tree removal and grubbing, and then Public Works Department is working on their annual paving project. They're on Alpine Current.
All right, we'll start with the junior council report. Do we have any report from junior council?
The community pep rally is tomorrow at 7, and the homecoming football game is Friday at 7.
Who's Saucon Valley playing on Friday? No?
Suddenly
Okay, all right. Good luck to Saucon Valley. Thank you. Rudra?
That's all I have.
Okay.
Homecoming is this week, so we got the games on Friday, and then the bonfires tomorrow night. The game starts at 7. So.
All right. Doing the festivities. All right, council reports. Mark?
I'm good.
Sandy?
I have nothing.
I have nothing. Priscilla?
Yeah, I just want to say that the Still City paving project is ongoing, and I guess most of it is okay, but I know I've talked to Mark about some issues and some complaints, so I hope they can be addressed by the contractor. And I just wanted to make the rest of the council aware that there are issues out there. So,
Okay. Is that all?
I think so.
Okay, Tom?
Yeah, we had a planning commission meeting on, what was it, last Thursday. Unfortunately, 2 members could attend, but we did present the land use plan for the landfill to the public, so they didn't have to wait till our October meeting. And we generally get good attendance at planning, but we have jobs and families. So hopefully we'll have a quorum in October. Priscilla was getting into ethics last time. Just wanted to bring to your attention. Priscilla, who was
Tommy,
Larissa?
I can't hear your microphone's off up there.
Who was Larissa McNamara?
She was the consultant on the window committee for the township for a long time.
And she reviewed foreign news.
Yes, she
So
did.
one of the contacts, she reviewed foreign news, reviewed
We
order
had 15
complaints.
days, we had 15 days to review one year.
So Hanover did that as well, so it's double, review.
No, I don't think Hanover ever issued any comments on it.
So we paid her thousands of dollars to do
I
this.
don't know what the money amounts to.
She ever stay at your house?
Yeah, she has.
Take you out to dinner?
No,
Buy a bottle of wine for staying in your house?
no.
How many times did you stay in your house? Was it an Airbnb situation? Airbnb situation, did you rent her? This was a, you were on the landfill committee at the time. She was being paid thousands of dollars by the township, is that correct?
I guess I was on the committee, I've been on it for a long time before you guys took me off of it.
Right, right. So you hired her when you were on council? You hired Tracy, Larissa?
She was hired, I guess, with Bob Schumacher. That was when we were still in another building. I mean, I don't recall if we hired her.
So, no conflict of
Was
hiring this person, paying her thousands of dollars in taxpayer money to do a duplicate function, review foreign use, which was reviewed by the, really a triplicate function, they were reviewed by the Department of Environmental Protection, they were reviewed by the Hanover engineer, and you hired your friend Larissa to review them again for thousands of dollars. She stayed at your house, and perhaps took you out to dinner, a bottle of wine, or thank you. Just something the taxpayers should, you do not, I have witnesses that she stayed at your house. I
That's
understand.
fine.
You don't deny that.
I told you already, I didn't deny it.
And she was paid thousands of dollars by the taxpayer.
Do you go golfing with your buddies?
Was Larissa paid
Do you
thousands?
go golfing with your buddies?
Nope.
Oh, come on.
How many guys I want to be?
Come on. Country club knows. They got cameras there too.
I pay my own way. I belong to the country.
And I pay my own way.
Right. But Larissa stays at your house and gets thousands of dollars, and you hire her from the taxpayer. All right.
Could you explain what
We'll
that
do that
has to do
later.
with now?
Keep smiling. They'll be smiling not too much in about 2 months.
Well, we'll go to,
I guarantee
go to
that.
the latest library. For 316.
Now, hold on. Sir, if you can't refrain from blurting out, if you can't refrain from vulgarities, you need to leave the room. Do you understand me? Okay, we have a code of conduct in this room. There are people that are tuning in remotely for this. They don't need to hear that. There may be children that are tuning in, and maybe others that don't want to hear that language. If you can't control your tongue, I'm going to ask you to leave the room, sir. Can you hear me? You're holding your ear up, your hand up to your ear. Can you hear me?
I'm very hard at hearing. I work construction a lot of years.
All right, then maybe you should step out of the room instead of blurting out vulgarities in this council room, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead, Tom.
All right, so the updated library reimbursements are up to 316, which is great, for $10,920, so 230 family reimbursements and 86 individual reimbursements.
Mayor Carlin.
And 71 did it via email or mail, so they didn't have to come into the office. And then 245 did it in person, came to the office and with their documentation and received a check. And the pool memberships finally done for the year. There were 94 total reimbursements for $5,690, 11 youth memberships, 6 adult memberships, 37 senior memberships, and 40 family memberships. So there was, that's between both the Howard Town Pool and the Southern Lehigh Pool. So I think these programs really give us, an insight when we do it this way to who's using the libraries, how much they're being used, what exactly we're paying for our nearly 12,000 residents. So I thank Kathy for giving me these numbers. And
Did she give you the numbers about Loretta room?
no, I had them from the previous. I had them from the previous. When my former township manager was here. All right, I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Tom. All right, solicitor report.
I don't have anything.
All right, we have no one here tonight. Public comment, non-agenda items, residents and taxpayers only, 3-minute time limit. First up is Bob Lasko. Bob Lasko. Going once, going twice, no response. Next is Dave Berland. Dave Berland.
Hey, I like this microphone. You speak into it. It does a good job. I want to comment on the slides that you have. A lot of information there. The only graphs that I saw that I had a problem with are so small you can't read them. I think they're informative, but the fonts need to be bigger. All right. So that's really great. I want to thank the council for forward-looking, all of you, forward-looking, doing the budgets. Boy, that's a really tough nut to deal with. But you're ahead of the game, and I know you're tired and it's late. Anyhow, congratulations on that. Yeah, I'm a citizen. I pay taxes. I see the 3.6% in August going up. I appreciate working people. I am retired. I'm not a millionaire though, unfortunately. And yes, having a little extra kicker there is if you have it. I know you are financially responsible, and there's no doubt about it. We can clearly see that. So appreciate that. Appreciate the hard work that you people put in, and including the fire folks and the police. Yeah, without them, this town would be a lot different, and we'd be paying a lot more in terms of fire protection if we had to. So kudos to you working on it, taking the time to do it all right. I appreciate the people that are professionals in this room, and I know doing business meetings, you learn a heck of a lot, and it's brought a lot to the table here. And thank you, Mark, for joining the crew. So, and yes, he does take calls, and yes, he does respond. He's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, next is Mark Ozimic. Mark Ozimic. Going once, going twice, no response. All right, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Excuse me, I'd like to
Motion to
add
adjourn.
to that list.
Second?
I think Andrew, did you say you were on the list?
No,
No, she's
because I
All the names.
But I didn't know I didn't see the slides beforehand.
So this is non-agenda items. No, there are no other names on the list. Do you wish-
Yes,
do you
but
wish to
I would
speak?
like to speak.
Okay, so you've been at other meetings, you understand the need to fill out a form and
I
write names.
understand that, but before the meeting, it was not clear what was going to be covered. And this
Sure, the
was
agenda
not
was
an
published.
agenda item.
It is or is not?
It is not.
Then go ahead.
Motion to adjourn.
3 minutes.
People that I think want to speak here.
I'm sorry, I object to that. If you can't sign up,
Julie knows.
if you can't read, you should not be talking.
You shouldn't be talking ever.
Stacy, start the clock, please. Go ahead.
A number of years ago, before Mark joined us, there was a gentleman who served as an interim manager. I've completely forgotten what his name is.
Peter Marsh.
Yeah, that was it. Before he left, he recommended, and the township approved, the creation of a compensation study as far as what people were paid within this township. As far as I know, the report was completed, but it was never made public. And before we start giving away bonuses again for the third year in a row, maybe it would be time for us to look at what that compensation report actually said. Because my suspicion is it says we're paying above average. I'm more interested in the fact that my tax money was spent to pay for a compensation report for which we have received no information. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think that concludes everybody that's asked to speak on the non-agenda. Miss anyone? No. All right. You made a motion to adjourn, I second it. Yes.
Mr. Coach?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeo?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Ms. Short?
Yes.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.
The check was issued, it's in Marshall, I'll call.
You don't need it. You don't need it.
A little bit less than half, but it's like $700.
There were some other years that were way worse, so.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping.
Oh, good. Sorry, that was too late.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
See you later, have a good one.
You too.
Because they're
I was wondering, I was looking at Rose Rail and Bullfall Drive, should be sitting here for a while. Just due for a visit.
I was thinking about bringing her.
It's nice out. You've been taking her for walks, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
It's probably too warm.
Well, yeah, I take her early.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't like the heat, so.
Right.
she's-
I turned the air back on yesterday. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, Billy, have a good night.
See you, Mark.
Is that recording still? I'm going to tell you when it's not.